Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Limes and a Lemon. I'm your host Dave, and this week none of us really understood who picked this one because we're all kind of just like, who's doing the intro? So we have no idea who actually picked this film, and we've gone with the movie Sinners.
Are we having theme music? Like, how do we... Is it just start with us talking?
Yeah, Dave's going to do us some, like, a jingle, I think.
Dave.
Nah.
Danielle.
Two Limes and a Lemon. Hi, so we're starting spooky cinema this time. We're moving away from the D-pad and we're getting the popcorn, we're getting the ghosts and the ghouls, and we're going to watch some horror films for this month and a bit. Is that right, Nat?
Yeah, for the rest of September and all of October.
Yeah, so we're going to stick with this one for a while. I feel it's a good idea because I don't know about you, but we do like 3 episodes on the subject and swiftly move on to something else. So we can be a bit more grounded with this one and really go into the spooky movies.
Stick our teeth into it a bit
Oh,
more.
that's good.
Stick our fangs into it.
I am joined with Danielle, who's best known as...
Danielle?
And I'm also with Natalie, who's known as...
Nat.
Yeah, and I invite them in to talk about this movie.
Bad idea.
Yeah, no. So the film we're looking at today is Sinners. But before we look into it, we're just going to have a little what you've been up to, what have you been consuming. So, Natalie, let's go with you. What have you been consuming?
Well, halfway through the week, my internet decided to pack in, so I had to go back to consult the DVDs. So I actually ended up picking, I've got like a big box set of Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman. So I started from season 1 of that for a bit until my new modem came. So that's what I've been consuming. 1993's.
Very good.
Yeah, I mean, you probably wouldn't enjoy it. It's very slow.
No.
But basically, it's about a woman doctor that leaves Boston and goes to Colorado. And obviously, she finds it really difficult to fit in because she's used to like the mod cons of Boston.
Well, why did you pick this one up?
It's kind of like, I suppose, like when you get like cozy games, this is what I consider like a cozy series.
Yeah.
There's like no real harm to it. Every episode's kind of like a different story. It's set in like, it's a time period I don't really know much about, so everything seems a bit more interesting. And obviously you haven't got like the mod cons of like medicine, so they're healing things with like bleeding people and leeches, and it's not like Grey's Anatomy, let's put it that way.
Also, I feel like a lot of like women targeted shows are these like historical dramas, you know, like an Outlander or whatever. They do very well.
Have you ever watched it, Danielle?
I remember it being on. I had a friend that I worked with who loved it, but I don't think I watched any episodes. So I vaguely know about it from this girl that would come into work every day and talk about it and about like her love interest. And I think she had a daughter. And
What about you, Danielle? What have you been up to?
I had a very busy work week. So I did a lot of consuming of like decompressing on my couch during the day, or in the evening, which isn't very interesting. But the previous weekend, we had a long weekend in the US for Labor Day, and I really laid into it, and I played a bunch of Coral Island, which I think you guys have also played a bit of. I don't think we talked about this one yet, have we?
I don't think so, no.
No, not yet.
So it's another one of these very similar to Stardew Valley, Palia kind of thing. And I've noticed Natalie keeps getting me into new ones of these, and then I never hear of it from her again. But I've gotten very into this one. You're a farmer, so you do a little farming, and you go around the town, and you meet people, and you give them gifts, and you get relationships with them, and there's a mine, and you fight things in the mine. And this one has an aspect that you can dive down, and you're like overall, there's this underlying story that this town is trash because like they don't have to like get rid of their trash. Like all their trash cans are overfilling, and there's trash all throughout the ocean. And this company is coming in to further make the environment bad. And so, but they have a pet adoption place. And so I have hit the milestone in my game where I had enough money and hit the point that I could adopt a cat. And the cat does me no good except I pet it every day and it tells me it loves me.
Ah, how about you, Dave?
Well, okay, so you guys have gone for the cozy aspect. I've gone off the rails here with the demo of Dead Reset has been released to certain people. So I had a look at that just to see what it looked like. So Dead Reset's like if you heard of Bandersnatch or Choose Your Own Adventure type of games. It's saying that's like a film and you just choose the options. It's all based in this bunker place, underwater facility, and you play as a surgeon who's got to operate on this lady, and then there's this monster that comes out and murders everyone, and then you die, and then you reset back, and you've got to choose all these options. Little plug-in, this thing I worked on last year, so it was nice to see it come together. And with the demo, it's really good. Like, honestly, when we watch things that I'm like, we're part of, you kind of always a bit critical. Like, but no, I generally watched it going like, this is actually loads of fun. I can't wait to have a go. I was really into it. And when it finished, I was like, oh.
When's the full game released?
The 11th of September.
So not long.
What platforms is it available?
It's on everything, I think. It's on Switch, PlayStation, Steam. So, but no, I just really liked it. It was really fun. And like Dan, obviously our friend's the main character, and he just does a really good performance. For something that's, because I guess with me, if it's a resetting thing all the time, you feel like, oh, it's going to get boring because it's like, I've got to do the same thing again. But it holds your attention, and I was really like, oh, how are you going to get out of this sort of situation?
Well, what did you do on this film, Dave? Or on this project?
Yeah, that's another thing. The monster that's running around, there was a main puppeteer group, but they had to go for a bit. So I got asked if I could just have a go at puppeteering. My main job was behind the scenes photography and taking pictures and stuff. But yeah, okay, so moving on. Danielle, or Nat, do you want to take over?
Go on then, Danielle.
Yeah, go on.
Lead us.
I've technically watched this 3 times. The first time was a viewing. The second time was because I had a friend at work who I thought would really enjoy the musical aspects of this film, but she's kind of squeamish about gore. And so I did like a fast forward watch to get timestamps, and I have like a list of Sinners for the Sensitive. So if anybody wants that, I can post that on our socials on how to watch this film if you're afraid of goriness. So this film is about a pair of twins, Smoke and Stack, the Moore twins. Smoke and Stack are their nicknames. Their real names are Elijah and Elias, so sort of variations of the same name. And their young cousin, Preacher Boy, whose name is Sammy. And they've come back to town. They're sort of legends in this town for being badasses. And they were in Chicago working with the mob and have come back they're in some southern town. Did anybody write that down?
No, I just said it was filmed. It actually was filmed in New Orleans, but I'm not sure. I would assume somewhere like Mississippi.
Yeah, like Mississippi or Alabama or Louisiana, like one of those sort of deep south towns. And it takes place I did write down 1932, so it's very much in the time of the Jim Crow South, very much segregated, and that plays a large part in how these characters behave and a lot of their motivations. The twins have come back to town, and they're going to open a juke joint, like a club, particularly for the black folks of the town. And so the first part of the film has them going around, reacquainting themselves with friends and getting them to come in on this venture. And then the second half of the film, or like the middle portion of the film, is them being like having the night at the juke joint, and music and this sort of family atmosphere of these people. And then the third part of the film is there's a vampire aspect of like these monsters trying to get in and destroy what they've created. So I saw this several months ago. I didn't get to see it in the theater, but I watched it at home. And my first viewing of it, I was torn. I thought I really enjoyed it, but I didn't see like 2 films here. There was a movie about the power of music and the blues and black culture, and then this vampire movie, and it didn't quite connect. And I think in this viewing, it connected a lot better for me.
I would agree that, yeah, it does seem like 2 different tones. You've got, I'd say, like 2/3, obviously, like the blues, the culture, and everything like that, and then a very small segment, I feel like, dedicated to the vampire aspect.
And to me, on the first viewing, I wondered, did they even need the vampire part? But I think kind of looking into some of the history and the extensive trivia, I started going through trivia on this, and then I was like, oh, this is massive. I can't write all of this down. But kind of understanding some of the motivation, it made a little bit more sense to me, but we can get into it when we get to that part. If nobody has any objection, I kind of wanted to start off with a brief overview of the Jim Crow South, because I was curious if you guys were familiar with this era.
Not particularly. Only what's depicted in film, really.
The Jim Crow era is after the American Civil War. So after the American Civil War, slavery is abolished. And so on paper, you would think, well, black people in this country are now going to be able to, they'll be able to live normal lives. But there was a distinction between whites and non-whites in this country, to the point in the South, there were these laws that dictated what black people could and couldn't do. Throughout the country at the time, it was much more prevalent in the South. In the South, there was segregation of schools. There were some issues with voting that made it very difficult for black people to vote. Learning history, at least when I did in this country, in schools in the US, you're kind of at the behest of the whims of what your teachers enjoy. And oftentimes they enjoy all of the stuff around the war. So we never learned about this Reformation period much after. And looking actually at the timings of things really opened my eyes a bit. End of the Civil War was in the 1870s. Black people in the country got the right to vote in 1870, but it wasn't until 1965 that they actually had the Voters' Right Act, where they made it easily accessible for all people in this country to vote. And as a sideline, women in this country didn't get the right to vote until 1920, which is kind of nuts to me. Interracial marriage was illegal until 1967. And so you can imagine then the setting of this film, where a huge divide between black and white communities. And so watching it the second time, keeping that in mind, there's a lot of scenes where you see Smoker Stack talking to people, and there's not a white person in the background because they're clearly in a segregated area. For me, in this second viewing, I thought that they'd put a lot of thought into that, and it kind of enhanced the film for me a bit. And then I think that also plays into, as the film goes on, we meet Haley Steinfeld's character, Mary, who is a woman who grew up with Smoke and Stack, but is white passing. And so she appears to be white in appearance, but she does have a certain percentage in her background that's mixed race. And if she were darker skinned, it would be obvious, and she would have to live, on the segregated black side. However, she's able to pass as white and appears to be living a much better life for the time with a white husband. And it seems like Smoke and Stack had some influence in getting her that life. And so whenever they see her again, even though it's clear that Stack is in love with her, he wants to keep her away, because if there's any interaction between them, it's going to clue people in on her being mixed race, and it's going to ruin her life.
Yeah, it's going to put her in danger, yeah.
I think, like you were saying at the start, when you was it feels like two films, I think it should have just, because I was very, my opinion on the film after watching it was, I don't really like it that much. Mainly because I think it should have been one or the other.
Yeah.
It sort of had all this culture and story and strong characters, and it really went into each person's persona and the story, and you kind of found out about their life and their struggles and stuff. And then as soon as you get this vampire thing, it just turned near the end just into I don't know, all the realism and the story of these people just turned into sort of and here's a horror film killing all you people and all this. And that's when I was like, oh, okay.
I think as well they made you care for the people, and obviously these big issues that were going on in the real world. And then it was just kind of like a bloodbath at the end, spoilers. Yeah. So then all of the building up that they'd done of these characters and the intricacies of the relationships was kind of I felt like it had almost been wasted.
Yeah, because that's what I was annoyed with about it. But then I thought maybe that's what he was trying to do. He's trying to get you to care about these people, and they're just taken away just like that. And you're like, oh, what was Kate Bishop's character called?
Mary.
Mary, she had all this stuff going on about, is she going to stay with one of the twins? Is she going to do this? She's still feeling it. It's got a lot of tension from the past from there, and then she just goes out and then boom, she's vampire now, and all that past stuff's kind of gone and doesn't matter anymore. So I was a bit oh, what was the point of all that? But in a way that makes you feel if I'm saying stuff like that means I cared about where it was going to go.
Mhm.
So it did good there, reflecting on it. At the time, I was more like, oh, this is annoying me.
I think as well, it's quite a long film, isn't
It's
it?
very
It's
long
like
film,
2 hours and 10 minutes. So you've gone through, like I say, like 2/3 of building them all up and learning about them and liking them. And then they're just gone pretty much.
Like, I think the most straightforward thing they could have done is not have the vampire subplot and instead have the KKK coming
How it ends. Yeah.
and attacking them in
Yeah.
this situation. And I think that would have been the most straightforward. And once you give your next point, Dave, I can kind of go into how I was seeing the vampire subplot this time.
I feel like if you took the vampire stuff and had the KKK turned up, and then it would have been like that, and it would have kept it more of this like, oh, the characters are fighting this sort of real life scenario thing that would have happened, or something like that, instead of this sort of supernatural element. But
I suppose in a way the vampires are kind of a metaphor for that happening anyway, because it's kind of like a nonsensical attack. It would have happened either way.
So my read on the vampires this time is kind of thinking more about the character of Remick, who is this Irish vampire who we meet midway through the film. He goes into the house of this couple escaping the Choctaw tribe who are hunting him down. They try and warn the couple, and the couple are like very racist, gun pointed, not going to listen. They end up kind of being Remick's cronies throughout. And so there's this idea that vampires, their soul is now trapped in this limbo on Earth. And so they're never going to be able to see their ancestors. And so in the film, the character of Sammy is so proficient at playing the blues. His music is so moving that it brings the power of, the past and the future, your ancestors and who's to come alive with his music. And so Remick hears this, and because he will never be able to see his ancestors again, and his big motivation seems to be building some sort of family of his own on Earth, he wants to get Sammy so that he can again see his ancestors that he'll never see because his soul is damned being a vampire. The movie would have been very serious if it, at the end it was a shootout with the KKK. But, this lent to being a little bit more of a horror kind of fun. It was gory in fun ways that horror fans like.
I mean, it was very reminiscent of From Dusk Till Dawn,
Yes.
which I know the director did say that he took inspiration from that and The Faculty. But yeah, it in a way made me want to watch From Dusk Till Dawn again after I'd watched it.
What did everybody think about the music theme in the film?
I mean, I'm not a massive fan of the blues, but
I guess that like one shot montage of it kind of floating around the room whilst the past and the present comes into one, and they literally burn the house down with their music.
But at one point, me and Dave were like, have they actually burned it down? We did ask that question. We were like, well, they're like screwed now. They've not even got a club tied in.
Yeah, the music stuff was quite cool. Yeah, he had a really good voice for his singing.
Oh,
Yeah.
he did.
Yeah, he had a deep voice, didn't he? He's like, oh.
Yeah.
I am also not generally a blues fan, and I think the blues that I'm used to hearing is the stuff we hear at the end, which is that like electric blues from Get Buddy Guy. And I think I like the very stripped down stuff like he was doing in the Juke Joint, where it almost has like a country blues aspect to it. Because after I watched this, those parts of the film, I listened to that soundtrack quite a bit and enjoyed it. But yeah, I agree. That scene, him playing and bringing up all of these ancestors, and like there's a Bootsy Collins type character, and there's even like a ballet dancer that kind of harkened to Misty Copeland, who was the first lead African-American performer in the New York City Ballet. And then also you have these performers from ancient China, because you've got Bo and Grace there, and it's all brought together.
Yeah. I also enjoyed the like Irish little songs, like jigs and stuff.
When they're all dancing outside and all blood everywhere.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed their music as well, as like a contrast to that.
And I think, again, kind of the theme of the power of music. Once Remick starts to turn a large proportion of the people in the Juke Joint into vampires, they've now sort of become his family. And so he's singing his music, and because they, as vampires, they all share this
hive mind kind of thing.
Yeah, like hive mind. They all know the music. So he's singing the songs of his ancestors, and, you know, all these people are like dancing in a circle around him and singing along, and he's doing the traditional Irish jig, and yeah, it was very powerful to me.
Rennick mentions that Christians took his father's land, and when I was looking at the trivia, it says that this puts his mortal life between the 5th and 7th century, making him like 1300 years old at the time of the movie. So obviously he's bringing music from like way back in his ancestral kind of timeline as well.
It kind of made me wonder if his life had been traveling around into different communities trying to reestablish a family. Like maybe that's where we pick him up, as he had gone into this Choctaw tribe and tried to assimilate them, and they weren't having it.
We thought they were going to come back. We were like, okay, so they're going to get surrounded. They're going to come back and start helping. But it was kind of like, just fend for yourselves, go for it.
Well, it's like, we knew that they said that it was getting to nighttime, so they were going to go home. But I was like, well, it's getting to dawn now. I was like, they're definitely coming back. No, they're gone.
You had talked about about Remick saying that that they had brought the Christianity to his country, and I was going to see how people felt about the underlying religious themes.
For me, the religious connotations was it reminded me of the blues singer and guitarist of Robert Johnson, who was supposedly sold his soul to the devil at the crossroads in Mississippi, and then was able to master the guitar. That was the first thing that came to my mind when I watched the movie, because there's a song, it's called Me and the Devil, and it comes up a lot on like Instagram now. There's like a newer version of it. I really like the song, so I looked up like what was because somebody in the comments I think had said like, oh, it comes from like this really old blues version. So I looked that up, and then I kind of deep dived into all this lore about Robert Johnson, who apparently couldn't play the guitar to save his life, and then he had like an absence away from like the limelight, and then when he came back he was really good at it, and everyone was like, oh, he must have sold his soul to the devil. I don't know if that came up while he was still alive, but it certainly was a myth that was kind of constructed after his death, because he died at 27. And there's like this club called the 27 Club, which a lot of musicians are part of, in that they die at the age of 27. So it includes Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix,
Janis Joplin, I think.
Yeah, Janis Joplin. There's like a really long list when you actually look at it, so it's quite strange. But yeah, for me, I was like, oh, it kind of like feeds into that kind of like mythology almost.
Yeah, and I think he's become sort of a not fictional, but like a mythical character that is put into a lot, like the whole idea of meeting the devil at the crossroads. So like Robert Johnson shows up in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And there was a 80s, 90s film called Crossroads. I feel like Supernatural had that.
Oh, they were always meeting demons at the crossroads, in Supernatural.
One of the more powerful scenes to me, as somebody who was raised Catholic, is towards the end, the final showdown between Remick and Sammy. And Sammy, who was, raised Christianity, is saying the Lord's Prayer to himself. And, we're kind of taught in Christianity, or not so much taught, but even if you're lapsed from the path, I think you tend to, in times of stress, even myself, I don't go to church anymore, but if I'm stressed out, I'll find myself saying little prayers. And even like silly things, like we had this little prayer for if you lost something. So if I lose something, I find myself going, Dear Saint Anthony, please come around. Something is lost and must be found. And so Sammy is just gone through this melee, and he's saying the prayer to himself, and the horde of vampires who are now, his community that have now been turned into vampires are like saying it back with him, like almost mocking him, and got really into notes at this time. So the song that Sammy sings when, all the ancestors are coming up is the song that he's written to his father, saying, I lied to you. Like, I pretended to be Christian and good, but this music really meant a lot to me. It was almost at that point where the prayer isn't saving him anymore. And it's like, you were lied to. Christianity lied to you. This isn't the thing that's going to save you, because they're using it back to mock you. And then ultimately the music saves him. He literally takes the guitar and bashes Remick with it, and the guitar has a silver, guitar parts, silver round thing on it that gets stuck in Ramek's head. And so it's like the music has won over the religion.
One of the things me and Nat noticed was the aspect ratio changing. They filmed it in 2 formats. It was like Ultra Panavision, where it's super wide, and then they did like a IMAX 70mm kind of thing that made it like the whole framing shot. So it was cutting. We noticed it a few times. We're like, is it gone to, especially when they were driving in the car, when it was more intimate moments or someone's telling a story, you went into this sort of widescreen thing. So it was this constant sort of shift in how the movie was framed. At the start, I was like, is this random? But then you can see it's intentional. It's sort of helping you move between, like, I guess, like the epic moments and then sort of the intimate moments when someone's talking or something.
There's a scene, isn't there, where somebody opens a door, and as they open the door, the frame just completely widens.
Yeah, so for example, that's a great thing. So like she says, come in or whatever, and then the doors open and the vampires will come in. It goes from being a sort of intimate moment, being that sort of widescreen with the bars covering up the top frame and bottom frame, and then it slowly opens up. So as the big epic kind of finale happens when all the vampires run in, the aspect ratio changes. So it doesn't feel like it's very intentional at that point.
It did make the scene a lot more epic as well. It did.
Yeah, I did notice that at all. That's cool.
How did everyone find the the CG of Michael B. Jordan playing both twins, like Lindsay Lohan, Parent Trap style?
So the director enlisted like 2 real twins as consultants to sort of get Jordan to sort of get the nuance and behaviours of how twins,
like mannerisms and things.
Yeah, to get them right.
It was believable though.
Yeah, they felt like 2 different characters.
It's a testament to how good Michael B. Jordan is. I think he's a great actor and was able to kind of pull off 2 different personalities.
Also really good. It was only like 90 to 100 million and it grossed like 366 million worldwide.
Apparently it's the second highest grossing original horror film since Sixth Sense. And I was like,
wow.
Sixth Sense come out ages ago. So like... It did really well. Do you feel like vampire movies are having a bit of a resurgence at the moment? Because in the last like 2 or so years, there's been like 5 different, or not including this one, vampire films that have come out.
What else? I'm drawing a blank.
What else is there?
Renfield, Last Voyage of the Demeter, Abigail, Salem's Lot's had a new movie, Nosferatu.
I think they're doing a remake of Blade too.
I feel like there was a load of vampire movies and then Twilight kind of happened and then they were like, oh, we're a bit sick of vampires. But now I feel like they're coming back in as like a monster that people want to put in films again.
The scene where Bo, the Chinese grocer, he's been turned and you're not quite sure, and he's trying to lure his wife Grace out of the building, and his eyes go like silver.
No, that scene was very tense when like the different people that you had kind of grown to like they kept coming back up to the door and you were like, are you actually like done or not? And then there was one guy that wasn't there, and then he did get eaten like at the last minute. Yeah. But it is kind of like, what would you do in that situation? Because you don't want to say, like, come in, but...
Yeah, that's what I asked you, didn't I, Nat?
What you would
I
do?
asked Nat, I said, when we were watching it, I was like, if that was Jay outside going, hey, come on, Nat, like, it's fun, be a vampire.
Oh, yeah, I was like, no, I just shut the door in his face.
Well, it reminded, one of the most famous of those type of scenes was from Stephen King's Salem's Lot. And so there's a young boy in that.
Is it the one at the window?
Yeah, and his friend is like floating second floor trying to get him to let him in. I mean, it brings up one of the more fun characters. Again, like this, there's some very serious tones in this film, but there's also some lightheartedness. And I think the most lighthearted character is this guy named Cornbread, who has been hired to watch the door.
Oh, the bouncer. He was my favorite.
And he's like trying to get them to let him in, and they're like,
yeah, he's like, come on, let me in. Why don't you just come through? You've been coming through all this time. Yeah. Why don't you just? Well, I'm being polite. If you don't, I'll give me. And that bit when he's like, "Can I just have my money and I'll go then?"
Yeah.
And you're like,
and when he grabs him,
and they shoot him in the face, and he's like, half his face is now ripped apart from that bullet. I was like, oh no, of all people.
I had in my list for my friend, at one point I was like, she can't watch any of this huge fight scene because
the climax of the movie, she wouldn't be able to watch any of it.
It was so gory.
Yeah.
And at one point, Delta Slim, who is this blues guy who's been hired to play the piano in the club, like our main characters are figuring out a way to escape because as Dave kind of alluded to earlier, the two Chinese characters are speaking to each other. The woman is now afraid that they've laid the groundwork that, oh, if you don't let us in, we're going to go kill your daughter. And so she's like super upset, and she's just basically like, you're invited in! And that's whenever all the vampires can come back into the juke joint, and there's this huge melee. And so to help save them, Delta Slim like slits his wrist, and he's just like bleeding out to be food for the vampires.
Yeah.
Oh, wasn't he gonna like blow himself up?
Yeah.
I know she blows herself. She throws it. She gets like a Molotov cocktail and like, throws it at her husband.
Yeah.
And they both like embrace in a fiery blaze. That's a bit like watching it. Like thinking it back, I'm like, actually, no, this film was quite fun to watch. But just watching it at the time, I guess there was so much build up because we were watching it. I was kind of in and out of it, going like, oh, they're just talking, yap, yap, yap.
It was quite slow, and then the last bit was very like fast. It felt like
and then when it got to the vampire bit, that's when I was invested. But maybe I'm more invested thinking about it now because of that backstory and those characters. Thinking, oh, there's a bit more about them and stuff like that. I'm still like on that fence of thinking like, yeah, but because they have just done it without the vampires and done, or they could have just gone like, like you said, they're almost like two different films. You could just, why don't you just do this vampire movie and make it all fun and gory and gross? And you got this other sort of like strong story about black community in it and their sort of like togetherness about after a hard day's work, they can just sit there and play music and this is theirs, this is their genre, this is their family kind of thing. Like when you said, like you was explaining, Danielle, about the one shot with the music and you were saying, oh, this was the first dancer and this, that, the other. Like, I didn't know that stuff. You telling me that, I'm like, okay, there's more to it. If you look into it and really invest in what kind of story he's telling there, you can really take away some stuff. So I guess if you know your history, watching it, you must be like, oh my God, this is doing so much for like representation and things like that. And
one of the deaths that I wanted to talk about, we've kind of been moving all over through the film, but there's this character of Annie who smokes. I don't think they were officially married, but they were together. They had a child that died, and he's left her. She has like an herbal shop where like kind of has voodoo background. Yeah, and she, to me, is like the smart, she knows everything in this film. She has them eating garlic to figure out who may be a vampire. She's giving people amulets.
She's the brains, definitely.
And so, but she has, before this big fight at the end happened, she basically tells Smoke she doesn't want to have her soul trapped as a vampire. If she gets turned, she wants to die. She wants to see their daughter again. And so there's this sort of turning point. Mary gets turned from the vampires and then is let back in, and she turns Stack, and they both want to turn Smoke so that they're all part of this family all together. And so when the vampires are let in, Stack immediately attacks Annie. The thinking is, oh well, if Annie's turned, it'll be more easy to get Smoke on board. But then he knows that that's the right thing, and he kills her, and you see the like abject fear in Smoke and Mary's eyes that, you know, oh, this plan isn't going to go as we thought it had.
I did like the sort of the one shot following the daughter in the shot. It sort of follows the daughter over to the mum, and she's like, "Oh, you're needed," and follows it all the way back. Yeah, I like those long takes. Long takes kind of work.
Well, there was another one. There's a character, Perline, who is the woman that Sammy kind of has a crush on. And consummates it midway through.
God, that's sick.
Oh, the I want to taste your insides or something.
No, hold on. We'll get to that in a sec. So
actually, I need to change what my worst scene was. Let me just note that down.
But there's a scene where she's singing, and there's like basically her and a guitarist playing. There's no percussion, and the percussion is between her stomping on the ground and the crowd clapping along. And then that is intercut with them kicking and beating up a guy who was cheating at gambling in the back room.
Oh yeah, they beat the crap out of him, didn't they?
But it's sort of like in time with the music, and the intensity is building up with this song, and we're cutting also to Mary and Stack having a romantic scene in the...
I love the way you say romantic scene.
But later then that Sammy discovers that Stack has been killed.
Literally like 2 seconds later, he literally walks back into that room and then back again, and he's already been murdered by that time.
Yeah, he's like, he's like, oh, he's having some fun in there. He's like,
Yeah.
I didn't ask you for that. I told you to go get him. He's like, oh, I don't want to interrupt that. He's like, let's go in, and there's just blood everywhere.
Oh, well, he shoots her.
She's like, you're gonna die. See you later, and runs off.
Yeah, straight away. And to be fair, I did like that because I was like, even though that obviously they've got a relationship and she's part of their family, he was taking no chances.
Yeah.
He just shot the shit out of her straight away because obviously his twin is more important to him than anybody else.
We now know that Smoke is dead in this showdown with the KKK, and then Sammy goes back and chooses music over his father, drives Smoke and Stack's car off into the distance, and then we come to 1992, and there's an old man playing electric blues in a club.
So you're all right there, yeah. The credits start rolling, and then me and Nat just turn it off. We were not happy. We weren't not happy. We were just like, oh, we don't need to watch anymore.
I just told him today before we started recording the podcast, I was like, we've missed a big scene. I looked up just like to refresh myself on Wikipedia and it went on about this scene at the end of the movie and I was like, we didn't see that.
So carry on, Danielle. So like...
Yeah, there's lots of little Easter eggs in the last scene because it's this very...
Oh, good.
It's this very famous blues guitarist, Buddy Guy, who's like in his 80s, and he's playing in this club. There's a sign for the club, and the club is called Perlene's, so he's clearly done well for himself since the events in the film, become a very famous blues guitarist, opened a club after this, like his first love. Who walks into the club but Stack and Mary, and they are dressed like full 90s, like they were on the Cosby Show or something, like wild, crazy sweater, like Cosby wore on that show, and she's got like a B-girl kind of outfit with like a lollipop she's sucking on. And basically, Stack says, I promised Smoke that I would stay away from you, that I would let you live your life. But we have all your records. We've been following you all this time. And, you know, I can tell you don't have much longer to go. Do you want us to turn you? Like, we can let you live forever now if you want. And he was like, no, I've lived long enough. This is, you know, whatever. And then they go to leave, and he says, wait, he goes, what?
That's so anticlimactic. And he's like, yeah, whatever.
Well, I don't think he was like, whatever. I don't have the script in front of me.
I'm old, see you later.
No, he's lived a good life. He's lived a very full life.
Who would want to be changed into a vampire when you're like decrepit and old? You're like, you'd want to be changed when you were young.
And interesting.
Thanks for telling me to do that now.
He's got like scars on his face from that fight. Looks like a monster is like ripped into his face. Yeah. And so he stops them before he leaves, though, and he goes, that was the worst night of my life, you know, all the carnage and everybody dying. He goes, but before that, like that time when we were having this party, that was the best day of my life. And then the two of them agree, and then they go their separate ways. Roll the rest of credits.
the rest of the credits that me and Dave were like, yep, credits are on, bye.
Don't like this kind of music, don't want to listen.
Right, let's go on to favourite characters, worst characters.
Perfect. I can go first. My favorite character is Annie, who is Smoke's love interest. Like I said, she seems to know the most, and she's got this like mother instinct and caring about everyone. And then my least favorite, I'm hard pressed. I think everybody works well in it. The character that I thought kind of made the action happen sooner than it needed to was Grace, because they're still like figuring out what they're going to do about the vampires. So they're like,
yeah,
how are we going to kill them? And she's just like, come on in. And then they have to, you know, immediately figure out what they're going to do on the spot.
Definitely best was Annie. I felt like she kind of kept everyone a bit more grounded. She gave them solutions, although they didn't all work out. She was definitely the more proactive out of everybody. And also she just was kind of like the figure that everybody needed. She was like the mother figure. She was obviously like the love interest for, was it Smoke? Yeah, I'd like Danny, everything about her. Worst, I'm not sure who my worst character was. I don't know. I want to say Pauline just because of that scene, but it could have been Pauline, or is it Pauline or Sammy? That whole scene just blew my mind. How about you, Dave?
Well, yeah, we've already said mine. Mine's Cornbread. I just like...
Oh, yeah.
He's fun. He's got his little overalls. He's just a funny little doorman. And he goes, I was sad to see him go. He was like almost one, not the first, but like one of the first. Because he goes out, doesn't he?
And who is your worst?
Okay, not the worst, because I just didn't like them, is the guy who plays the piano.
Oh, Delta Slim.
And I thought like they did his ending, how he died. He obviously cuts his wrist and, come here, vampires. I kind of felt that wasn't, like I could tell what the director was doing with it, but it wasn't as like epic as I feel like they were trying to get it across.
Are we doing favourite scene?
Yeah, let's do favourite scene.
Favourite scene was probably Rennick's introduction. The whole scene with him at the cabin with the couple. The ominous vibes of like, there's like vultures swirling around the cabin when they first see it. And you're obviously like, that's a sign of death or like ill omen. And then once he's inside the cabin, the vultures have landed on the roof. Like that whole scene was really tense. So yeah, that was my favourite.
I'd say when the vampires first turn up and say like, we can sing too, and they do this kind of like, and it's like the difference in like this like massive performed like one shot song that we've just listened to, where it's all this culture and all that, and then it just then cuts through free like redneck kind of like, I was just like, I'm embarrassed for them.
But there seems to be almost some magic in that scene too, because one of the twins almost lets them in. He's like, oh, you guys are pretty good. And then his other brother is like, no, we're not letting them in. But
then they were good when Mary goes out there.
Yeah.
And they play a little song to her. That was like...
I think I have the easy choice. My favorite scene was, the whole party thing, like the night at the juke joint. It just seemed like this community coming together. And then there's this massive set piece of this song bringing together generations past and to come. I thought it was very powerful. And that was the reason why I thought my friend, who is really into music, different types of music, would enjoy that aspect of this film.
So let's do our ratings.
Yeah.
It's a hard one. At the time watching it, I probably would have given it a 2 because I was just like, Then on reflection, which is always good, if a film stays with you for a few days and you go, weighing it all up and stuff, and talking about it now, I'm going to give it a 3.5, almost a 4. Yeah, let's give it a 4. 4 limes out of 5.
Nat?
I am going to give it 3 limes out of 5. I think it was very well done. I like all the symbolism in it, but it isn't a movie that I would watch again.
I think on my first viewing, I would have given it a 4. I think on reflection, in seeing it a second time, I'm bumping it up to 5.
Ooh.
5 lemons. I think this is a pretty amazing film and worth watching. I think we're going to see this a lot at awards season this year. I think it's going to win a lot. It's like a hard thing. When there's a really well done film with horror elements, it sometimes doesn't get recognized for awards.
No.
But I'm hoping that this does.
I think just for the sheer amount of money that it's made on the budget, they can't overlook it because it's done so well at the box office. It's done better than a lot of just like what you call award season movies.
Yeah. And I would say it's like you don't feel like you're being lectured to. There's so much history and deeperness to this film, but it doesn't feel like it's talking at you, like shoving it down your throat.
Telling a story.
However this got picked, I'm grateful that it did, because I feel like going into this and really looking into, like I said, some of these things that I know of as American history, but I've never looked at the stark details of it. I really enjoyed that, and I'm glad that we did this. So as we mentioned, this month we're going to be spooky seasoning along. We've got a lineup of all kinds of horror films that we plan on doing. I think we've chosen.
We've tried to go like different subgenres of horror, so it's not all just like the same.
And we're possibly going to have some guest hosts join us on a couple of these discussions, so that'll be fun/interesting.
So that is that for this episode. Again, remember, if you haven't given us a follow, well done for getting it this far, but also give us a follow. We're on Instagram, TikTok now, and obviously if you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify, give it a little follow, say hello, and we might even give you a little shout out. You never know. Alright, cool. So see you later, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.